So, you want to prep a session. That's what we're going to do today. Not really. But welcome back to another, actually not another, this is the first episode of, DM Tips with me, Jim, your dungeon master here at Goblin Tuesday. This was one of the first questions, and it's a question that has been asked multiple times in regards to planning a session, which we'll kind of run into as well for the next one that we're going to do, which is planning a campaign. But yeah, this is the first one. I apologize we didn't get another one earlier because I was sick and out of town. But planning a session is a multi-faceted thing. Not everybody's going to do this the same way. There is 3 schools of thought in regards to how you plan a session. And ultimately, it kind of depends on who you are as a person and how you do things. There's one way, which is don't plan at all and just wing everything. If that's how you play your games, great, awesome, good for you, have fun. We don't do that here. The second way, I am holding up 2 fingers. The second way is have an outline of this is where the party starts. This is what I would like to happen, and this is how I would like the session to end. And then the third way is to plan everything and overplan. Now, as I've said, you do what works for you and how you want to do things. On one side, people are going to tell you there's no point in prepping a session because if you prep a session, the players are just going to come in and ruin all of your plans. And to that, I say, if that's your way of thinking, it means you're not giving your players enough structure to guide them into where they need to go. And I don't mean railroading them. We never want to railroad a player. But if you go in and you say, oh, I had all of these plans for this to happen, and my players just decided, oh, we're not going to do that. You either A, have really bad players who are just there to cause chaos, and that's a problem in and of itself. Or B, you didn't give enough emphasis to the players of the things that you need to get done. You can't just say, hey, there's this thing over here, go do it. Players aren't gonna grab onto that. You got to give them a reason to go and do those things. So I don't like the idea of, oh, I had all these plans and then the players just ruined everything, because no, that's your fault as a DM with respect. Unless, like I said, unless you have those really, really bad players who are just there to cause chaos and not actually there to play the game, because that's a whole discussion that we'll get into on another video. So yeah, you do have the option of just winging it, and winging it is great. You can absolutely do that. There's nothing wrong with completely winging an episode. I do that on occasion when I'm just swamped through the week and I don't really know what's going on. That's one of those episodes where you allow your players to, they're the ones who can decide what to do. You completely put the whole entire episode in their hands, and it's a good way for you to stretch your improv skills in regards to thinking on the fly and stuff like that, which is great. I don't recommend doing that every single session. Of course, again, that's just me. The other option, the second option it was outline. And this is something in regards to you have to have a feel for how your campaign's going. You basically have a starting point of, hey, players end it last episode here, and I'd like to have them go here, 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 and have this encounter, this encounter, this encounter. It's a very, very loose thing. It still runs the through the ideology of the players are just going to ruin everything. So there's no point in wasting time prepping. And it works. There are occasions that I'll have sessions that are like that where I don't feel like writing that much over the week, so I'm just like, maybe we'll go and do this, maybe we'll go and do this, and then we'll see how the players react to the direction that I gently push them. The third way of prepping, which is the way that I tend to prep the most, and that's because I am an over preparer. And I will admit that I over prepare for everything. That does not mean you have to, but I am a person who I like having all of my cards laid out in front of me. That way I know, or I have a plan for anything that the players might come up to or come up with. And this also helps if you have the same set of players in multiple games. Like if you're constantly running with the same group of players, you know how they're going to play, you know the choices that they're going to make. You're going to know if that chaos character is going to just try to set a town on fire, or you know how they're going to act. So this is also going to help you. But I plan heavily. I will sit there, and it's not I'm going to sit down and prep. I usually do not recommend people sit down with the intent of prepping a session. That's never going to work. Sitting down and prepping a session is going to be the thing that you do when you just need to write out stat blocks for the monsters, write out encounters, or anything like that. Plan through the week. Always have a notebook handy and consistently take notes and jot down things as you're going through your day, and ideas pop in your head. Pop it into a note app if you have it on your phone, a notebook, write it on a napkin, whatever. But that's how I normally do things. I literally start planning the session almost actually like 2 episodes in advance. If I'm on a story arc, I will plan to have hey, there's gonna be 3 episodes, so I'm gonna start kind of planning all 3 of those episodes 3 weeks in advance so that I know where I'm going, and it gives me time to change things depending on how the players react. So what I'll do in regards to prepping for an actual session is, 1, figure out the goal of the episode. There's always going to be a goal. You have to know that you want to accomplish something, because if you're trying to tell a story and you're not just here to let your players run wild, if you're trying to tell a story, you need a goal for every episode of what you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to convey, what you're trying to do. Now, that may very well be, I'm just trying to convey a relaxing shopping episode. It might just convey a travel episode. You know, it doesn't have to have a deep underlying meaning, but you have to have a goal of what you're trying to accomplish. And once you have that idea of what that goal is, like, okay, this episode, I want my players to get to this location, discover this bad guy, find out this clue to the overarching story, meet this NPC, whatever it is. That's the great starting point. Figure out what you want to accomplish, and then figure out, okay, players are here at point A, how do we get them here to point B? And point B is that goal that you're trying to accomplish. Once you figure out that, then you can start filling in the space between in regards to, maybe you want an encounter, maybe you want them to meet somebody else, maybe you want whatever to happen. And then once you have that kind of written down, then you plan for the variables, and that's the players of, like, okay, we want our players to go to this town. Okay, but what if our players decide that they want to go to this other town? Okay, that's a different thing completely entirely. Now you can semi-railroad, and what I mean by that is put obstacles in the game that seem natural, that forces them to the original point. You're not technically railroading them because your players don't know what your players don't know, right? If you just sit here and say, no, you're going to this location, that's railroading. But if you then suddenly say, hey, you guys were on your way to this, or you want to go to this town, but the road that you're getting ready to try and get to that other town is flooded. You know, sure, they can still continue to try and pass, but you're putting obstacles in the world that are natural, that isn't a fuck you, you have to go and do this thing. It's still giving them the quote unquote illusion of choice. And I know a lot of DMs are going to be upset about that, and they're going to be like, well, that's just fucking railroading and you're taking away player agency. No, you're not. Taking away a player's agency is literally telling a player that they cannot do something or they have to do this other thing. Your players don't know what your players don't know. So if you're not telling your players, hey, you were never going to be allowed to go to this other town, they don't know that they were never going to be allowed to go to the town. Does that make sense? The illusion of choice is completely acceptable. You're not cheating your players out of anything. They can still choose to go through that flooded road. They can still choose to go and do all of those things. And sometimes there is nothing that you can do. Your players are going to be dead stuck on, hey, we got to go and do this thing. And that's fine. And that's when you kind of sort of have to improv of being like, okay, sure. But that also comes into play when you're prepping of like, okay, if you're at point A and you have a city here, a city here, a city here, and a city here, plan for stuff in all those cities, even if it's just minor. Know the lore of the world that you're in. Hopefully if it's a homebrew world, you already know things that are going on over there. If it's a world that takes place in a pre-existing setting, understands the lore of the surrounding areas that your players are always in. That way you can on the fly prep, and you just know, oh, these players are going to this town. It's a heavy industrial town. There's going to be lots of work. So maybe once they get there, we can have them, I don't know, figure it out. But ultimately, I kind of got very, very sidetracked on there, and I'm sorry. But ultimately, prepping is going to come down to who you are as a person and how much prep you like to do. And yeah, knowing the goal of the session is the most important thing, and can set you up for success. If you know what you want the players to experience or encounter, great. If you're gonna have an encounter in that game, make sure you have, whether you're taking, I'm a big fan of physical notes. I've got notebooks over here, I've got notebooks over here, and I've got notebooks down here that are just full of different things. Have the encounter stats ready to go. You don't want to have to go diving for books and all of that. So have things written out in regards to like, okay, if the party goes in this direction, they're going to face this encounter. If the party goes in this, they're going to face this encounter. And you've got creature A, B, and C ready to go, good to go. So that when your party gets there, you're just all set and good to go. You've got all of the health planned out, and you can kind of also set up like where the party, or not where the party is, but where the enemies are. So then you can kind of sort of also plan a little bit of how the encounter runs. Once you get into combat is kind of when you start losing control of things, because you never know what your players are going to choose in the moment, turn by turn. So don't plan too heavily in regards to combat itself, because that is one, you're relying on dice. You can plan for an encounter to go one way and the dice say, how about no? And your players are really hot that day. They're hitting crits, they're decimating things. So there's no point of planning very heavily into combat encounter. You can, that is up to you. I don't recommend it because it's just gonna hurt you. But yeah, there's not a lot that I can really tell you more about prepping a session. The main thing that I will again just reiterate is know what you want that session to accomplish and fill in the blanks there. But yeah, that's a 15-minute video for you for this one. I might record another one. I might do another one. But that's it for this one. Y'all have yourself a good day. If you've got questions, please comment. If you've got concerns, comment. If you've got opinions, comment, maybe. If you've got other things that you're curious about how I do things, because again, my way might not work for you, and that's okay. That's the beauty of this game, is that this person's going to prep one way, this person's going to prep a different way. Every DM you're going to meet is going to prep a different way. Maybe I'm just able to give you one additional tip and one additional way of doing so. So if you got other questions that you'd like me to discuss, let's talk about it.